What is Akatosh? Well, if you just simply play these games as a typical casual player who doesn't scrub the lore like a Batman who scrubbed the Tolkien lore, or a Batman who scrubbed Dune lore, or the Batman who scrubbed any type of lore, even mythologies like the Greek mythologies defined which deities of the Greek pantheons actually came from Egypt and all that madness. If you're not one of those types of people, which is the majority, then you would know that Akatosh is the god of time, the god of man and myr, the big honcho heavy dragon god, man, love god thingy. He's the guy everybody loves, man and myr alike, all revere him. He is the big head honcho. Until you get a little deeper. And then you start to wonder, who is this guy? Where'd he come from? And I started to question this ever since I started to play Skyrim, which I did admittedly play first, and then I went back in to play Oblivion, and then I started to question Akatosh even further, playing the Nine Divines expansion, and then I decided to question Akatosh even further when I did the Dawnguard expansion, and got into the Temple of Auriel, and then I learned that Auriel was Akatosh, and then we learned that the Nords thought Alduin was Akatosh, who thought without Akatosh was Alduin, Auriel, and then there's Toshraka on Mysterious Akavir, and then we have all sorts of things like the Khajiit. Don't get me started on the Khajiit with the Alkosh and Lorkosh and Nerdy and the shtick with lore, with mythology in general, and the way this was written is full of two things. One, the mythopoeia, and in this case, the meta-mythopoeia, which means you are a writer for a fictional reality, you are writing a mythology. And then you happen to write a writer living in your fictional reality who is writing a mythology, drawing on existing mythology, with that you also wrote in the lore. So you're basically doing meta-mythopoeia in this regards. And that's what Akatosh is. He is a product of meta-mythopoeia. The other thing from mythopoeia is that this story isn't exactly, how you say, true, but it's not exactly wrong either. The mythopoeia and the unreliable narrator combine to make this aspect of tons of stories that exist out there depending upon who you ask, and many of these people believe what they tell you, and many still would actually lie to you. For example, if you asked a Daedra a question, you're more than likely going to get a lie for an answer, which means that some people might believe this lie, obviously, because there might be no contradicting evidence unless you look at an obscure book, because nobody likes to read books, though, so when everybody looks at all the hundreds of books, and lore books, and all this stuff by the time of Skyrim, and all these books at the Imperial Library website, nobody goes to these things, nobody looks at all this stuff, so nobody knows. Well, Akatosh, from what I've uncovered, was created around the Slave Rebellion. There are conflicting, contradicting sources around this time, of course. We have one story saying that Akatosh appeared before the slave queen Alicia when she was pleading for aid for the subjugation of all of the aliens and all of that stuff, and Akatosh was like, oh, big, happy, fun guy, I'm here to help you out, here's a golem from the future, he's a bad man, he's gonna genocide the elves, never you mind that I'm Auriel, never you mind that the elves love me, and never you mind that I love the elves, here's a golem that's going to kill my creations for you, don't question it. I'm Akatosh, by the way. It's like the more you learn about Auriel, the harder it is to reconcile Akatosh with Auriel. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. See, Ariel, by looking at the creation myth, the monomyth, and all this other good stuff like that, Ariel and the Altmeri pantheon with their mythologies and stuff, Ariel, and then we get the snow elves of the chantry of Ariel, and the Gelibor man will tell you all about Ariel as well, and we learn that Ariel is also the dragon god of time, and he was probably the original one before there was an Akatosh, before there was a Alkosh, before there was a Tosh Raka with mysterious Akavi, before there were all those, there was Ariel. Ariel was the original spirit, of the eight. There's not really any sources saying that there were eight. Maybe the myth, the Aldmeri Aedra. There you go, the Aldmeri Aedra. As you see in Aldmeri, Aedra simply translates to our ancestors. Daedra simply translates to not our ancestors. So technically, we have two sets of spirits here by the dawn era, commingling, creation of the world and all that good crap. And one of the things that we have here is the Enelfe and the Wandering Enelfe. The Enelfe awaken on Altmeris, is what they believe. And they're all happy here. They're all happy-go-lucky, happy people here. Shiny, happy people. Everybody's sunshine and daisies. And the Aedra are living amongst them. Everything's happy. And then the Wandering Enelfe, who showed up on other parts of the world, other continents and stuff, they started to come into Altmeris. They start to sail their ships with their pantheon, their gods, and all of that stuff, like Lorcan and the like. They come to this land and they say, "Hi, happy people, remember us?" And the Enelfe are like, "We hate you guys, go away, this is our place, you guys go away." And so they have a fight. Lorcan's on the side of the Wandering Enelfe, and Ariel is on the side of the Enelfe. Big war. It's a big war, big fights, kalpas, and time, and contradicting, conflicting resources, and nobody knows for sure what happened here. You can't really ask the Aedra. They don't talk to people anymore. And of course, you can't really trust the Daedra. They don't tell the truth half the time, 90% of the time. Hermes Mora probably knows what happened during this period. Do you think he's going to tell you? No way! Not for free, at any rate. And if you're going to ever find out, you're probably going to be stuck in Apocrypha, never to be able to leave to tell anybody what you found out. So, this knowledge, if there is a true truth, if there is a true kind of molecular aspect of what this is, you're never gonna get a concrete answer, and that's part of the point onto why all this conflicting information exists. The point is that if we ever gave you a concrete answer, that defeats the purpose of the Mythopoeia and all of the unreliable narrators. The idea is that the canon can be formed individually per player. We have enough information there to give you an idea of what's going on if you don't want to question anything beyond that. But if you do feel like questioning beyond that, we have it there for you to look at. We have it there for you to read. We have all these lore books. We have all these contradicting resources. You can look at who wrote the book. Do you see who this guy is? Oh, he's an Altmer from over here. Altmer with T. There's differentiations there. So he's an Altmer from over here. Oh, this guy's just a Redguard. He's just some guy. He may not be as reliable as this guy. So these two contradicting resources, he may be more right. But then somebody else might decide, oh, this Redguard may be more right. This Altmer maybe try to lie and deceive us. It's canon is what the player makes of it, so as to say. It's trying to give you a unique experience in a world where the Mythopoeia and the unreliable narrator have created differenting stories. There's a version of Akatosh in every major province, pretty much, except for maybe Blackmarsh. Like the Khajiit have Alkosh, the High Elves and the Bosmer have Oriel. Akka was mentioned in the 36 Lessons of Vivek for Morrowind. The Nords call him Alduin, the world devourer. It comes back to their dragon cult days. They could be wrong as well. And then we have the humans who became the Imperials in Cyrodiil. These guys are descended from the Needs, that is Nedes, Needs, Nedic. The Nedic peoples who populated Cyrodiil, eastern Hammerfell, and parts of High Rock, maybe. The Nedic humans were around, and there's a lot of conflicting lore about them as well. Whether they were here from the beginning, whether they were survivors of the big battle from the old Enelfe and the Wandering Enelfe, or whether they came here before even Ysgramor and the Atmorans did from Atmora. Maybe they came from Atmora first, a long time ago. There's so many conflicting stories. And they're kind of a lot like the Snow Elves and the Dwemer, and everybody thinks, oh, these guys are here long before the High Elves came with the Chimer and all that stuff. The Chimer came wandering and did their thing to go to Morrowind, and then the Ayleids here, and then the Denari guys, and High Rock and all that stuff. It's like, these two types of elves, we have no sources of where they came from. They have been here before the earliest elven migrations, and it's like, where do these guys come from? Were these guys here the entire time? The Snow Elves worship Auriel too, so they have the same Auriel as the High Elves Auriel, but maybe their stories are a little bit different because the Snow Elves Auriel is a little bit nicer than the Altmer Auriel, but that's kind of because the Altmer the High Elves are a little bit more racially inclined to like their own kind over literally everybody else. So maybe they changed their Auriel to be more racially inclined for High Elves, Mer in general, and hating all sorts of humans. So, of course, when Queen Alicia, the Ayleids have been ruling the Needs for centuries at this point. The Needs, if they had their own gods, they don't know them as well anymore. They technically worship the Ayleid gods, the Ayleid deities. They may have a couple of the Ayleids came here early on, and at the start, the Ayleids might have worshipped mostly the Aldemary gods, the happy-go-lucky Aedra guys, the happy ones that eventually became part of the Eight Divines. So maybe they looked at the nice Aedra people like Auriel, and they worshipped him. And of course, that we know this is truth, because many people in Cyrodiil were worshipping Auriel by the times Queen Alicia did her slave revolt with the Nords. And the Nords were needed. They were very vital to freeing the Needs from the Ayleids. And of course, Pelennor Whitestrake was also vital in doing this. So the Song of Pelennor, written by Michael Kirkbride and all this other mythopoeia and unreliable narrator and all that stuff, somebody wrote the Song of Pelennor. Somebody in universe, an unreliable narrator, wrote the Song of Pelennor. So somebody in universe wrote every book that you're reading, even though somebody in the real world wrote that book from the perspective of an unreliable narrator. It's very complicated to figure out what is true and what is not. Everything that you read could be a complete lie. Everything, absolutely everything you read could be a complete fabrication, or it could be partially true. History is based on truth and lie, depending upon the perspective of the person writing the history book. For example, the Nords. If you're reading Nord books about the Ysgramor conquest of Skyrim, you'll read it from a favoring position. You'll read that the elves were barbaric. The snow elves were meanie faces that went in and said, oh, the people of Sartha with all poo-poo heads, they did this, it was a very bad thing. So Ysgramor came back with his companions, and we slaughtered them. It was all justice and righteous, and they tried to defend their perspective. Ysgramor wrote all this down, and there's no other conflicting sources, because all the other conflicting sources were killed. So if there were any surviving Snow Elven records, they'd probably be favoring the Snow Elves over the Nords and say the Nords were the barbarians. Unreliable narrator, who's right? They're both saying the other is a barbarian. Well, we need a more neutral source. We need a more neutral source looking outside. But then again, you can't really ask the Dwemer what happened with this war. They don't. Well, they probably give you a neutral position, honestly. But they probably view them both as savages, honestly, because they view themselves as above really much everybody. And so the Dwemer are kind of unreliable there as well, because they have a perspective that is unique to their own. Akatosh, technically as a name, arguably did not exist prior to Queen Alesia creating the Eight Divines. And from that moment forward, Ariel became Akatosh in Cyrodiil. He was renamed to Akatosh. His aspect changed as well. As you see, when the Aliens and the High Elves preach Ariel, Ariel is more of the protector, happy guy for the Mer, for the Elf. The humans? Nah, those guys are just chaotic, pandemic, Lorcan pieces of trash. Ariel only likes the Enelfae. Ariel doesn't care about the wandering Enelfae. And the wandering Enelfae are the humans. And so, that's that mythology. Ariel, big happy guy for the Mer, for the elves, doesn't like humans all that much. And so we have Lorcan, Shore, who is more, I like the humans, I hate the elves, let's get rid of the elves. And it's more of a Nordic thing, for Nords have been in power in Skyrim for quite a while by the time of the Slave Queen's Rebellion, which implies that maybe the original Lorcan has been a little bit warped from Nord perspectives, as for example when Ysgramor pretty much genocided the Snow Elves from Skyrim. Then they went into Morrowind to try to do the same over there, and then the Dwemer and the Chimer had to combine forces to repel the Nords from there. The Nords are pretty powerful. These guys are big, powerful people, right? And they hate elves. They do. They absolutely, completely hate elves. The Nords and the High Elves are pretty much the two dichotomic perspectives you want to look at here. They might also be the oldest surviving perspectives from man and Mer that have been uncorrupted, unwarped by the other altering perspective, but it also might be the most racist, so it might have been altered to be more pro, depending upon who you're reading. If you're looking at the Nordic pantheon, it might be more warped to be more pro-human and more anti-elf to justify the racial bias against elves. And, of course, when you're reading the Aldmeri pantheons and all that stuff, it could have been corrupted. It could have been warped to be more pro-elf and more anti-human. So, even both of those could be wrong as well, both of their perspectives. And we know, well, we don't know, actually, but we think we know that Alduin is the firstborn son of Ariel, even though Alduin claimed to be Ariel. And we don't really know any absolutes here, right? A couple dragons could say, oh, no, that's not right. But of course, the dragon's probably trying to push down Alduin. You know, they don't like him. And maybe it's all just a matter of perspective. Everybody just has a different perspective on what this is. Or maybe that's all true. Like I said with the previous video with Malakath and the Dawn Era and all this other crazy stuff going on in the Dawn Era, maybe all of these stories were come up in some writer's room with a bunch of monkeys. And they're all coming up with different ideas, and nobody can pin down the specific idea for Ariel / Akatosh that they want, so they decided to keep all of them and use all of them. They just separate them a little bit. So these guys believe this Akatosh story, these guys believe this Ariel story, these guys believe this Akatosh story, these guys believe in Alkosh, these guys believe in Lorkosh and Alkosh and all this other blah, blah, blah. And these guys believe in Akka, just Akka, and no Akatosh, no Ariel, just Akka, and it's just a bunch of... It's all there, but it's so conflicting. I prescribe to the notion that Akatosh was created after the Slave Queen Rebellion, and that Alesia, realizing that Shore is very anti-elf, Lorcan Shore, very anti-elf, Pelennor Whitestrike, very anti-elf, genocider of elves and all this stuff. She realized this is a war that's going to be unending, basically. It's going to be the doom of both of their peoples someday, because these two aspects just cannot reconcile each other. They just cannot. The aspect of Ariel is always going to be against man. The aspect of Lorcan Shore is always going to be against Elf. And these two opposing viewpoints are always going to try to wipe the other out, but unable to do so because they're infinite perspectives. So the only people who suffer are the mortals fighting on their behalf. So Alicia could have said, you know what, I need to stop this. I need to make peace. We need peace. We can't just have an eternal war and genocides just because these two deities on high hate each other. So we need to reconcile this. I need to reconcile the Nordic pantheon with the Aldmeri pantheon and create peaceful gods out of both sides. So she created Akatosh to be a peaceful Ajic, Lord Time Dragon God. She kept most of the aspects of the Oriel Time Dragon, but got rid of the racist anti-man aspects of Oriel, and created a Time Dragon God who is very sympathetic towards humans and elves. Very big, peaceful dragon. Peaceful, happy dragon that everybody can love. That loves everybody, and is all about peace and love and hippie crap. And she did the other divines as well. She added Nordic aspects, and she kept in elven aspects like Stendar's from the Aldmeri pantheon. Kinnereth is from the Nordic pantheon. Mara, arguably looked at by both, but from different perspectives. Of course, Shore and Lorcan is missing. She decided to not put Shore into the 8 divines. But I'd argue that Lorcan is hiding in plain sight, through the mythopoeic, through the art of myth-making and the creation of the 8 divines by Queen Alicia when she was penning all this crap together to become the High Priest of Akatosh and all this stuff. She decided to put Lorcan in plain sight. She decided to put Lorcan into Akatosh. Essentially, you could argue that Akatosh is like the child of Lorcan and Ariel. He's like the child of it, because it's like both aspects. It's the twin-faced deity with the head of a dragon and the head of a man. It's because it's combining the best of both of these deities, Lorcan and Ariel, the best of both of them, into one that is kind to both sides, instead of hating one or the other, and always purporting violence and racial hatred and all of that stuff. Queen Alicia was all about making peace, no more dominance by any other type of people, just be peaceful with one another, just be coincidentally living together, And of course, right after she died, there were a bunch of people who were not exactly happy with the idea of living with aliens, elves in general. Nords were pretty unhappy with that as well. And so we get the Marukati Selectives, who are the prophet, Maruk, who is a monkey man, literally a monkey man writer. It might have been a joke at a time, because we call a bunch of the writers a bunch of monkeys, right? It's a joke. You look at a couple of the Michael Kirkbride's posts, he makes a lot of meta inferences from a lot of the lore and contrasting lore, and that is the result of a bunch of monkeys in a room who were throwing things together, and then there was a fire, and then the sprinkler system came on, and the map got all wet, and that's where the lake came from. It's using the meta, so maybe Maruk is like a joke that this is an idea from an actual writer for Akatosh, and then they just decided to put it in here. I don't know, I'm just inferring. And so, Maruk, the monkey, literally a monkey man, is a monkey human, a monkey, I don't know, the Imga, they're extinct now, apparently. Maybe the Imga are actually the monkey people who are over in Akavir. There's a nation called Kapotun or something like that, full of monkey people. He might be related to them in some distinct way, shape, or form. Who knows? Somebody might write that in someday. They haven't yet, but they might. Who knows? But Maruk decided to go like, I'm gonna get some people together, and we're gonna get Ariel out of Akatosh. We're gonna rip him out of here. We like the idea of Akatosh. We like Akatosh, but we don't like Ariel. We don't like the elves. We want to rip the elven aspects out of Akatosh to make him a god for mankind only. Which is ironic, which they could have just started worshipping Lorkhan again. But not too many people remember Lorkhan. The Nords know, sure, obviously, but the Cyrodiilic Needs do not know Lorkhan. Some of them remember Shazar, but it's not as big as Auriel. Auriel is known by everybody. Shazar is a whisper in a dark corner, in a dark shadow of a forgotten era, a forgotten god, a forgotten time. Lorkhan, sure, is the missing god, unless you're in Skyrim, in which case Shore is one of their chief deities. But in Cyrodiil, he's not. Shazar is a mystery. He's a mystery man. Shazar being the Cyrodiilic term for Lorkhan, sure. All three of them are the same guys, just different names, different stories, different perspectives, mythopoetic, unreliable narrator. So, the Marukati Selectives got together and decided to do some very crazy stuff. It's called a Dragon Break, and this one lasted for about 1,000 years. It was one of the longest Dragon Breaks with a lot of conflicting stories, because that's just what Dragon Breaks are, is that a ton of alternate ideas that can't really work together are all true in this Dragon Break. It's when time breaks and a bunch of things that couldn't happen at the same time happen at the same time. This is probably, in real world terms, it was just a way for them to save their butts when they wanted to just make all the endings of Daggerfall canon, because they realized that when they have multiple endings, the players like each ending. They want their ending to be in the game. So when they make the third game, they had to figure it out. They were talking with each other. Everybody was talking together and saying, how do we reconcile all this stuff? Because none of this works if all these endings kind of are very. And so somebody came up together and said, what about a Dragon Break? What if the time just broke and we make it all canon? It's kind of like the Dawn Era idea. They just say, what if we just make it all canon? All of it. All these conflicting stories. We just throw it all in here and say, even though it doesn't work, we're still going to use it. So Daggerfall, Dragon Break, and now we have the Middle Dawn Dragon Break, which is a 1,000-year-long Dragon Break where a bunch of weird stuff happens. I don't know the full extent of what happens during this thing. It's a Dragon Break. The idea of a Dragon Break is meant to not understand it. One of the things that I did read that I really like this idea. It's from the Khajiit mythology. They're talking about the Middle Dawn Dragon Break. They're talking about this thing, how the dragon broke during this time period with Maruk and all of the monkey people and the Selectives, and trying to break reality by removing Ariel entirely from Akatosh. And so Boethra, I think is what the Khajiit call her. So Boethra is made aware of what's going on, and so she decides to intervene. She decides to go to the Marukati Selectives and say, I don't really like what you guys are doing. So she kills them all. She gets rid of them all. They're all gone. And she realizes, she looks through into the ethery realms. I have no idea how she did it, where she went, what realm she went to, the aspect of ideas, the aspects of reality. I don't know where she went. But she beheld two dragons. She beheld two serpents. One was a crystal-looking dragon, big shiny thing, and she read that dragon's mind, and this dragon was spewing all sorts of man-hate, anti-men, I hate humans, I hate all of this stuff. And then she looked into the mind of this other dragon, out of whose mouth dark void was spewing chaos. And this dragon was saying, I like them both. I like humans, and I like elves. I like the idea of all of them. And so Boethra decided to kill one of these two dragons. So Boethra destroyed this crystal-looking dragon, and when she defeated him, that Dragon Break ended. And that's that story. In a nutshell. I'm leaving a lot of details out because this is, if I go into detail about all this stuff, I'd probably be here for 15 hours. This is just how annoying Dragon Breaks are. They're annoying. They are. They are annoying, but I like them at the same time. And that's the thing with the entirety of Elder Scrolls lore, is I like them and I hate them at the same time, because of all these unreliable narrators of the Mythopoeic and things that I had to look up just to figure out what they were. I didn't know what Mythopoeic was until a couple weeks ago. And then, actually, I'm very happy I know what Mythopoeic is now, so arguably this academically research and stuff that I've been doing has been fruitful for me. So I like it and I hate it at the same time. I despise and love the lore of Elder Scrolls because of how complicated this is, because the story will change depending upon who you ask, in universe and outside the universe. You can ask Michael Kirkbride a question, you can ask Kurt Coleman a question, you can ask Ted Ralston a question, and they will probably tell you a different answer. But they're all writers for this thing. They have all got together to write and contribute to this world, and their perspectives are all in here. So if you ask somebody in universe about this, they'll give you a different answer. Somebody else in universe this answer, this Ultima will give you a different answer. This Redguard will give you a different answer. Manamorka will give you a different answer. Vivek will give you a different answer. Daedra will lie to your face and tell you something else that might be pro-Daedra. So maybe the thing about Boethia doing this thing could be Hui entirely, because maybe they got this idea from Boethia. The Khajiit asked Boethia, and Boethia said, yeah, I did that, yeah. And it could be a lie, or it could be true. We don't know. You can't really pin it down. Despite how much I want to pin it down to a single origin story, you just can't. But that means that every other alternate story is also unable to be pinned down in concrete. There's so many ideas here. Is there an Akatosh split up? Multiple personalities or multiple Akatoshes? Well, that would mean that time would have had to have broken. And time has broken quite a few times. The Dragon Break Daggerfall, the Dragon Break when Tiber Septim used the Numidium on the Somerset Isles, the Dragon Break of the Middle Dawn. There was probably another Dragon Break at some point, and there probably will be another one. And again, whenever they write a Dragon Break in, time breaks. And gods are created, and often through Dragon Breaks. They're often created through Dragon Breaks. It's very complicated. The Kimal Adabal, which is the Amulet of Kings, contains a droplet of Lorkhan's blood from Lorkhan's heart. So why is it the religion of the Elysian Order and other Imperials and the 8 Divines say that the Amulet of Kings is from Akatosh, and we have the Dragon Pact and all this stuff of the Dragon Blood, and that there's Dragon Blood inside the Amulet of Kings? Why do we have this story that there is Akatosh blood in the Amulet of Kings and there's Lorkhan blood in the Amulet of Kings? Is it because the both are one and the same? Is Lorkhan hiding in plain sight as Akatosh? Or is Akatosh just the child of Lorkhan and Oriel, the child aspect created through the Mythopoeic of making a new thing out of pre-existing things, and the faith and belief into this thing literally made it real? I don't know. But I like to think that Akatosh was created, and that he wasn't always there. It was Oriel at the start, but then there wasn't Oriel. There was another one, and then there was another one, and then there was another one. I think Akatosh was created through the Middle Dawn Dragon Break, though. In the middle of the Middle Dawn Dragon Break, something happened in that 1,000-year time period. Then afterwards, Akatosh was there, and retroactively, Akatosh was always there due to time, before, after, but when the time broke, there wasn't an Akatosh before time broke. After time broke, there is one. That's my theory, at any rate. It's very difficult to pin this stuff down, as I've said. It's very difficult. But it's very fun at the same time.